From the studio that brought you X-Men The Last Stand, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Fantastic Four 2015, I give you Deadpool. Alright, so Deadpool has finally arrived, the R-rated, graphically violent Deadpool film we have been waiting for. And this time, get this, his mouth is not sewed shut. This film is written by Tim Miller, stars Ryan Reynolds, TJ Miller, and Morena Baccarin, as well as Ed Skrein, the guy from Transporter Refueled. And I'm just going to jump right in here. I'm going to start with the bad. There's very little. I'm going to start with the bad so we end the review on a positive note, because I like to do that. So starting with the bad. The pacing in this film is a little wonky. I mean, there's never a moment where it's like, okay, this is dragging. I need to check my clock. But there are times when it's like, this has slowed down a little bit, or this is just weird pacing, because like the first part of this is brilliant because it's, without giving anything away, there's action and then a little bit of backstory, and then action and a little bit of backstory, and that's the best I can say without giving anything away. I also want to talk about the fact that the film does feel a little bit anticlimactic. Just a little bit. Because you get to the final battle, the huge battle, and it's cool and fun to watch, but it feels like a mid-film battle, not really like the final battle. So when it happens, it's kind of weird that, oh, that was the final battle? Okay. This leads me to my last bad thing, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, I'm sure. It goes too far. Not terribly too far, because a lot of what's in this to get the R rating is warranted for Deadpool. The hyper-violence with lots of blood and gore is warranted for Deadpool, absolutely. The use of language is moderately, it's a fairly big part of Deadpool, depending on the comic book run that you read. But the thing about the sexual content, the sex humor, all those sorts of things that are in this film, most of the Deadpool comics don't actually have a ton of that. So unless you're looking at Deadpool Max or a couple of the recent runs, you're really not looking at a lot of that stuff in Deadpool. So that does kind of kill it for the Deadpool fans like me that prefer the Deadpool comics that don't have all that stuff in it. That being said, compared to all the buzz around this film and how raunchy it was going to be, it actually feels like it's about the same raunchiness level as like Kingsman or Kick-Ass. So if you enjoy those films, you're probably not going to find this too far. But all those things just feel like they're unnecessarily taking Deadpool to a higher level of inappropriateness than was really in most of the comics. Like, that's just there to be like, yeah, we got rated R, what now? But it's like, okay, fine, but it should have been rated R for the violence and the blood and maybe the language, not for all of this stuff. It does feel at times like, okay, you're going a bit far here. Now, on to the good. First of all, the performances in this film are excellent from everybody. But the three that really stood out to me, and I think the three that were most definitely supposed to stick out to everybody, Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. And anybody who's ever watched Van Wilder Party Liaison knows this, because let's be honest here, Van Wilder Party Liaison is basically Deadpool without a costume. And the way that Ryan Reynolds is as a person, his sarcasm and the way that he talks, that is Deadpool. He is perfect as Deadpool in this film. And he is hilarious as Deadpool. This is the Deadpool we have been waiting for. The Merc with a mouth. And then we get to Morena Baccarin, who I love. Anybody that knows me knows I love Morena Baccarin. She's in Firefly and Serenity. She was in this great indie film called Back in the Day, made by guy played like Michael Rosenbaum, that played Lex Luthor in Smallville. It's a great film. I really like Morena Baccarin. She did a great job in this film. She does kind of fall into the whole like damsel in distress general area, but then she kicks butt at the very end. So it kind of like plateaus. It levels out. So she's not entirely it's not Sam Raimi level damsel in distress from like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. It's not like that. I wish she would have had more screen time and more time to kick butt and less time to be the kind of quirky love interest. TJ Miller is hilarious in this. TJ Miller is somebody I like, but it's kind of a weird... For me, TJ Miller is still a kid from Cloverfield. Like, I know he's in a lot of stuff. To me, he's still a kid from Cloverfield. So seeing him in here in this very different role, where he's still being funny, he's still being a comedian, he's very different. It's interesting to watch, but he's very, very good. He's very funny, And the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and T.J. Miller here is hilarious. Which leads us to our next thing. This film is incredibly self-aware. I mean, the opening credits, I'm not going to spoil a thing about them, but the opening credits just make instant, it just makes this instant, like, oh, this is going to be full of fourth wall breaks. It is very aware that it's a film. And it is. Throughout the film, there are so many times where it just breaks the fourth wall, where it tells you that it knows it's in a movie. And I won't spoil a single one of those jokes, but that is something that's present. And I think everybody expects that, but I was blown away by how well they handled all the fourth wall breaks and how well they handled Deadpool knowing it was a movie and all that. It plays very well, and there's even jokes about Deadpool knowing that it's a movie. It's great. And it is really funny. I think that's one of the best things about this movie. It is hilarious. It is very funny, and it feels like Deadpool humor. Watching the film, it's like, oh, I'm watching a slightly more crude Deadpool comic. And I love that about this film. It feels like Deadpool. No more mouth sewed shut, no more shirtless with marker drawings. None of that garbage. This feels like a extended Deadpool comic with some more language. That's what this feels like. And that is amazing. Obviously, this film is super stylish. There are some really good slow-mo shots that are well used. Most of the action is not in slow-mo shots, thankfully. There's not a ton of shaky cam. The action sequences are incredibly well directed. The editing on this film is hilarious. And if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. I don't really want to go into detail because I feel like it'll spoil the film. The editing in this film is really, really well handled. Obviously, it's Deadpool, so it had to be very clever, and it is very clever. At least it's into the violence. I want to bring this up. It is hyper-violent like the comics. There's blood, you just see clips from the trailers. He shoots the guy and, goes through 3 guys' heads and stuff like that. But I feel like there's actually more in the way of romance and bromance than there is violence. Like, the violence is sort of secluded to these little scenes, and everything else is sort of just character building, letting these actors sort of ad-lib off of each other, which I thought worked really, really well. And there are some scenes where it starts to get a little dark. You start to see him be serious, and then it's instantly broken with him just being a smart mouth. And it's really, really well handled, so it never really gets too dramatic. It always just sort of stays a comedy with some dark elements, sort of a dark comedy, and I really like that about it. The last thing here that is sort of weird to say about Deadpool, it was actually a really sweet movie. Like, for a Valentine's Day release film, everybody was, it was funny because they were putting out there as a romantic comedy. It actually kind of is. Now hear me out. It's not sappy and stupid and silly, but it is very heavily focused on the romance between Reynolds and Bachman, or their characters. It is very focused on it, but it's done in a very clever way. It doesn't feel sappy or girlish, whatever that means. It's just handled very well, and it kind of allows these characters to sort of ad-lib and run and play with these characters even more. It's really, really well handled. So at the end of the day, Deadpool gets an A. If you are a fan of the comics, you will probably love this movie. Don't take children. Don't see it with anybody that's easily offended. But if you enjoy the comics and you're not easily offended, you will probably love this film. If you like superheroes in any capacity, you should see this film. It is really well handled. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, and share. God bless. Have a great day.